see the entire screen?
Oops.
Can you see the entire screen or just portion of it?
I can see a portion of it.
Yeah, you can't see the whole slide yet.
Uh-uh.
Stops there. Let's try this again. Share screen. Slides as virtual background. I don't think I want that. Oh, here we go. Found it. There we go. Now, can you see my whole screen now?
Yes.
Okay. And if I now put this into, well, what I'll figure out is how to put this into full page display mode at some point. But anyway, we can work with what we've got here. Does that look presentable enough?
It looks great. Now, let me ask a quick question. So the reason that they focus on decontamination and cancer, from what my friend's husband, Pete, was saying, is that years ago, they kind of already addressed lungs and heart. And so that's why it seems to be the focus is on cancer. Now, is that your take?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So you still have significant presence of heart attacks and lung cancer, but you know, back then everyone smoked a lot more than they do now and things like that. But yeah, they're slowly redefining what the source of the problem is. We've moved away a lot from smoke specifically, or smoking, to what now is in the air that firefighters are breathing as a result of all the chemical-based furnitures and furnishing and floors and
right.
all the plastics. So in fact, I'll show you a slide of what we call the toxic soup that is now appearing in the air that firefighters would breathe.
Well, I'll let you probably, I should have just waited, but I'll let you go ahead and just do the presentation, and then we'll see if we have any questions at the end. So
okay, so it's designed to be a little interactive. If people want to ask questions at any time, I'm happy to take them at any time. I'm also deliberately going light on the text and the number of slides. I only got 5 slides. I mean, I could add 20 slides easily, but I was just going to do a quick overview for 15 minutes and encourage people to go look elsewhere if they want to learn more. There's some great reports out there that I'll mention. So I want to talk a little bit about cancer in the fire service, and to do that I'm going to do a little introduction to who we are and what we do with this agenda. So I want to talk a little bit about the Milton Volunteer Fire Corps, what I am, what we do, as we lead into cancer in the fire service. I talk a little bit about some of the solutions that we're working on or that are available to us, and then sum up and do a Q&A. I want to give a lot of credit to the 2 folks in the bottom there, Chief Ben Musa. He came from Portland, Oregon, I believe it was, and Arizona to Milton a couple of years ago, 3 years ago now, and he deserves all credit for this initiative of reducing cancer in our firefighters, but also he and I together founded the Milton Volunteer Fire Corps, which I'll talk a little bit about. So he deserves so much credit for being the driver behind a lot of the things you're going to hear about. And the other one is Michelle Ice. She is director of the state of Georgia Cancer Foundation, the Firefighter Cancer Foundation. She's an ex-firefighter from Cobb County, and she's now leading an effort in Georgia to educate fire chiefs and others about cancer in the fire service. She trained me, and in turn, I've trained about 40 fire chiefs from around the state of Georgia in cancer awareness, cancer prevention, and ways to fight, cancer and so on. Before I talk about cancer as a specific issue, I want to talk a little bit about the Volunteer Fire Corps. I am an ex-firefighter, 7 years. A volunteer in Massachusetts and a volunteer here in Georgia, but I've now since gotten too old for that. So I founded the Volunteer Fire Corps. It's a part of our professional service, or let's say we support our professional firefighters. We are 100% volunteers. There's about 28 people in my organization that I founded in May 2021. And while our focus is going on fire incidents and supporting our firefighters, we do a lot of other things, and I call it the hub and spoke model. The hub is going to fires. You can see, for example, here, this is one of our members changing an air tank out on a firefighter who has been in a fire. You can see how filthy dirty they are, but also while they're on air and they're inside fires, putting out fires, those tanks need refilling. So one of the things we do is we refill air tanks at fires. The other thing we'll do is provide light services. So at 2 o'clock in the morning when it's pitch black out, we have LED lighting systems. We also do rehab, which is cold water, cold towels, and what have you. You can see here in this bottom center one here, we've got a tent set up with buckets of ice, cold towels, cold water, and so on. When firefighters come out of fires, they are super hot. There's steam coming off of them. Our job is to cool them down real quick and then get them back into the fire. We monitor them medically to make sure that they're available to go back in or soon to go back in. That rehab process is something we do as volunteers for our firefighters. That one in the center there was at a fire, a recent fire at one of our schools, where a light fixture suddenly burst into flames and then dropped down into the auditorium and set fire to the seats in the auditorium. And that was quickly dealt with. Fortunately, it was right around the corner from our firehouse. Now, but in addition to the rehab and the air, light, and power things we do, we also provide decon services, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But our hub and spoke is that you don't have to join my organization, this volunteer organization, just to go to fires. In fact, most of my members don't go to fires. They do other things. We have one program called CARES. It's a community paramedic program. We have about 9,800 citizens in our community, elderly typically. We go out and check on them once or twice a week. If someone comes out of hospital and they need pharmacy services or pharmaceuticals filled, we have a paramedic who goes out to them, helps get their pharmacy prescriptions filled, and works with the hospital and the doctor and the patient to make sure that they're safe at home once they've been discharged from hospital. Let's say they've got a broken leg, we will make sure that their house is suitable for them to move around safely and things like that. So we do a lot of other things as engaging our community, but the focus is on our professional firefighters. And one of the big things we do in recognizing them, you can see down here, this banner in the bottom right was a banner that we put up outside our firehouse, our headquarters on our main road, thanking our EMTs and paramedics for their service. But the big thing is firefighters are in high demand. There's not enough of them. I would argue they don't get paid enough for what they do. Particularly now, we do 80% paramedic calls rather than fires. We only have a few big fires a year in Milton. And so we want to keep those people. They are being recruited heavily from all over Georgia, all over the country. And so as citizens, we go in and make sure that every day, every shift, every firefighter knows how much we appreciate what they do. Out of our first responders here in Milton, of about 100 and maybe 150 of them, firefighters and police, our whole first responder community. Right now, I think only 2 live in Milton. The rest live in other counties around. One of our firefighters lives south of the Atlanta airport, which is a 45-minute commute there and back on a good day. We really have to, work hard to make sure they know how valued and appreciated they are. So that's what we do as citizens of our community in the fire corps. Let's talk about cancer in the fire service. This is what we're here and why we are focusing on decontamination as an issue. When I set up the Milton Volunteer Fire Corps, we have a local group called Alpharetta Fire Corps. They're the next city over. And they had a big focus on air and rehab. And so walking in and starting afresh, I thought, well, we don't need to do the air and rehab. They've already got that. Let's team up with them and we'll focus on decontamination. And that's where I got introduced to Michelle Ice. and started learning about cancer in the fire service. Firefighters have a 9%, it's documented, 9% greater probability of getting cancer than the general public. And actually, if you look at what they do, particularly as it relates to fires, they are much more at risk and much more exposed to some really bad things in the course of their work. You can look at the toxic chemicals, over 200 known chemicals in smoke today. And if you put on top of that all the things that we have in our houses, like plastic flooring or vinyl flooring, we have all sorts of fire-treated furniture, all sorts of polyesters and so on in the house. When that burns, what used to be a black smoke or a white smoke, I've seen it personally, purple smoke, blue smoke, green smoke. I mean, all those chemicals are burning off. And those toxins are not only getting released into the air, which the firefighters could breathe in, but they're also getting it all over their skin. And that's really important. So the decontamination process is quite involved. The first thing we do is we make sure they're protected. So they need to be on air from the time they arrive at a scene to the time they leave. Even the fire marshal who goes in 24 or 48 hours later to identify the source of the fire marshal must wear air tanks, full respirator as well, because these fires are still gassing off for 48 hours afterwards. It's still a toxic soup there. So we absolutely encourage our firefighters to wear their oxygen respirators from beginning to end. We as individuals, as volunteers, we stay well away from those smoke ourselves, and if we do get in the vicinity of smoke, we'll be quick to move. We always position ourselves upwind and so on. So we take great precautions ourselves as members of the public. In addition to the toxic soup that's getting on their skins and potentially breathing, we're trying to avoid that. They're getting it all over their gear as well. And so we've developed some protocols, and you can see them down there on the left, of decontaminating the gear, decontaminating the skin, and then washing the gear in special machines called extractors. And we now have extractors at each of our stations. So the gear comes back in a plastic bag. You can see that down here. We bag at the scene. So once the event is over and terminated, we then take the gear, we wash down the firefighters, or in fact, quite often they wash themselves down using a hose from the engine. We have special chemicals we spray onto that gear. It breaks down the carbon molecules adhering to the firefighter's gear. And then we bag that and take it back and wash it. And then they go and use a second set of gear if they would have another incident, which is unlikely because it's very rare we get two fires. Biggest cause of fires in our community tends to be lightning strikes. So if the weather's bad and it's a foul, nasty night, you'll typically find that we're the ones that are going out on nights like that because we have fires from lightning strikes. The other thing you'll notice up there, in addition to cleaning their gear, you'll see hero wipes up there. Well, those are used to clean the skin of firefighters, and we clean them at the scene using these wipes. They'll wipe themselves down, get it on. It's like a makeup remover type thing, but the goal is to get them out of that incident and back to the station within an hour of finishing up. It's called the shower within the hour. We want to get them back into a shower as quickly as possible. So that's why we'll take care of the decontaminated gear. We'll carry it in our truck. Once it's all been bagged or double bagged, it's wrapped and so on. They're not allowed to take this gear in their fire truck. We have a clean cab policy. Those cabs are kept spotlessly clean. 80% of their calls are medical calls, so they've got to be spotlessly clean themselves when they go into people's houses and make medical calls and so on. So the gear could get thrown on the back of a truck or certainly in one of our vehicles. The other thing I wanted to point out too was exhaust fumes. I don't think I've got a picture here, but all of our firehouses have a special adapter, a hose that gets connected to the exhaust of the fire truck. I have a video, a really good video of a fire truck going out where we show how we use the exhaust extractor, and the exhaust is sucked up through the piping into the top of the house and then ejected through the ceiling. So there's no exhaust fumes in a fire station. The other thing that's important to note is the FAO, the fire apparatus operator, the guy who's doing, or girl, we have 6 lady firefighters on our team, doing all the pumping at the engine. They're typically the one right by the exhaust. And so the other thing we're watching for too is getting that exhaust away from the engine operator, because they have an even higher incidence of inhaling diesel fumes. Those trucks run for a long, long time because they've got a lot of electronics that need to be kept lit. And so you'll typically find fire and police too, they leave their vehicles running because they need to keep the computers all running and so on. So that's, and then finally, no fire gear beyond this point. We have established within our firehouse clean areas where you're not allowed to wear this gear anywhere near the kitchen area, the sleeping area, the exercise area. We have special places where they're simply not allowed to take that gear. So that's kind of a little bit about the, and we also watch the sunburn, particularly down here in Georgia. I am actually, I grew up in Australia and I have skin cancer. I've had a couple of surgeries on my nose and my forehead. I've had some carcinomas, I think it is, and squamous and whatever. So we also carry sunblock for our firefighters as well to make sure they're not out in the sun. That's another reason why we have the tent. You can see the fluorescent markings here of a firefighter. What happens is they have a helmet on, and then under the helmet they have a hood which protects their face, and that goes down into their neck, and then they put their gear and wrap it around. You can see a little bit of a hood here in this firefighter. They've done experiments, black light type experiments, and these fluorescent areas are where firefighters, even though they're protected with the helmet, the hood, and the gear, their turnout gear, that's where carbon deposits have appeared. So you get a lot of carbon deposits around where the face mask fits, and also down here in the neck, and also you can see here on the thigh. It can still manage to get up even despite all the protection they've got. So that's why we want to get them into the showers as quickly as possible. And we also have special soaps that we use. And as volunteers, through Michelle, I've found a source of getting these carbon activated soaps. We provide those to our firefighters in their showers so they can go and use these carbon activated soaps. In fact, I may have, there it is over here. This one on the right here, this decontamination, this Everyman Jack body wash is a activated carbon body wash for men and women. I will say that the women don't like it as much as the men, so it tends to be a little male oriented, but it works. It gets the carbon off, and so we leave that in each of the showers. Citrus squeeze is what we use to squeeze to wash down a firefighter. You can see here one of our volunteers is hosing down the firefighter here. They're still on full gear. They're still on air. They're still with their respirator on air. Got their full gear on, and that's when we want to get them. We wash them down. We spray them with citrus squeeze. You can see here a little bar of soap we use, decontamination soap, whatever. That gear, we take those tanks. We wash those tanks. You can see the buckets here set over to the left. We have a dirty one, which is the white bucket, and then we have 2 clean buckets. So the air bottles come in, they get washed, they get placed on the red tarp. If they're empty, they get filled in the back of this vehicle, which is our friends from Alpharetta, and then they get put back on the green tarp, which means they're clean and filled. We also wipe down the straps and the webbing of this gear, make sure there's no carbon deposits on all that. We'll wash those down. And then down here, you can see one of the firefighters here putting his gear into an extractor. And the other thing we do too is we help our firefighters wash hoses. Those hoses are filthy. So we'll take those, we'll wash those all out, get all the carbon off of those, and then hang them up to dry on the hose drying exercise stairs there. The other thing that's important, if you ever go to a firehouse, if you have the opportunity, go visit where they store their turnout gear in these what they call boot lockers. We have installed boot lockers in 2 stations in Milton. They're completely open air. not only for the circulation purposes, but we can walk in and see at any instance if there's any dirty gear anywhere in that boot locker. Well, we can get that gear out and give it an extra wash. So the idea now, these are circulated with fresh air, and they smell, I must say, they really smell nice and clean. And that's our goal, is that where they store their gear should be as clean as if it was new. You see on the back of the truck here, the various things we have. We have firefighter decon buckets filled with sponges and soaps, and we ourselves wear gloves. So we're protected at all times and so on. But that's a typical setup for decon. And it normally occurs at the end of an incident. So we're doing rehab throughout, we're doing air refilling throughout, and we're doing decon at the end, which then extends back into the station. And then finally, the National Volunteer Fire Council, the NVFC, has created a great document. It's called the Lavender, I think it's the Lavender Report. I've got a copy of it here somewhere. Oh, there it is down here. I put it up here. So here's the Lavender Ribbon Report. It's a great resource. It has 11 practices that are being recommended for firefighters, from all the way from wearing full protective gear, PPE, having a second hood. We carry a second hood on our vehicle. You can see our vehicle. I don't know if I got a picture of our vehicle. I think I have one. Here it is up on the loft there. You see this vehicle here, this transit van. We carry on there the ability to make coffee. We've got cold water. That's our decon box right there. So this transit van goes over. You see it here as well. And then the back, and over here on the left, where we did a barbecue parade for the 4th of July. So this support unit, and actually the value of the support unit is more than just going to fires and supporting firefighters. As a result of having this unit, the city gets a lower insurance premium as a result of having ISO points for having this vehicle. So the city benefits a lot from not only having the vehicle, but nearly 30 volunteers, none unpaid, to go and do this service for our firefighters. And then finally, there's a whole bunch of other things like wipes and so forth. So that is what we do in the fire corps, the air, the rehab, and the decon. But really importantly, and this is why I go back to the beginning, why I talked about hub and spoke. The hub is going to fires. The spokes we have include wellness, not only mental wellness, but physical wellness. We have had in Milton a suicide from a firefighter several years ago. We don't want that repeated. So mental wellness and physical wellness. So one of the things we're working on is developing a framework to inform our citizens about, if you were to bring food to the station, let's try and avoid the donuts and cakes and breads and things like that. Our firefighters are super fit. They have to work out an hour every shift. They're on shift every 3 days. They must do a full hour. And it's not only a matter of being physically fit, and they are, in fact, all of them take physical fitness seriously. There's a nutrition component. And so as Karen found out a couple of weekends ago, and by the way, we did a cook on Sunday night for one of our firehouses. The first time we've done a cook, as it were. But the other thing we're trying to figure out is, how can we have a framework for nutrition? How can we feed our firefighters, and how can we help our firefighters feed themselves, as well as how can we help the public when they bring things to the firehouse? We don't need brownies, for example. What about a bowl of fresh fruit? What about some apples or oranges or bananas? We call it the banana brigade. We want to encourage people to bring healthy foods and vegetables to our firefighters. And so therefore we are not only promoting and celebrating the wellness of the firefighters physically, particularly related to cancer, but we also want to make sure that they are physically capable of fighting cancer as well through good nutrition. So that's basically it, and I would be happy to take some questions. I will say one thing, quick thing though. The most difficult thing of all of this is changing a culture. You see in the bottom right here, it's a mark of honor. It used to be anyway. Covered in black soot to come out of a fire, and how brave you were, and what have you. Now it's not. Now we are really trying to change the whole concept of cancer prevention, making it easy to do it, and just do it. Don't accept that looking like that is acceptable. It's not. So peer pressure and so forth. So these are all things we're doing to try and change the whole culture and address the problem of cancer in the fire service.
Fascinating. That was great.
That's a 15-minute. I mean, I've spent 2 hours.
That was about 24 minutes, but
Okay, perfect. That was a little longer than I was.
that's okay. And here's what we've learned is we only have about 30 minutes to keep people's attention. We should really shoot to see if we can keep this whole thing to 30. So let me make a couple suggestions.
Oh, I could do this in 15.
Can you? Well, let me ask. My suggestion is, Karen, you do a really quick intro, no long bios, just very short. You don't have to do very much for me at all. Steve, I want them to know about him. And then let me do a general quickie health info intro right at the beginning, just to set up the talk. And I'm just going to give the stats on heart disease, cancer, what's going on in America. Why are we in the place we're in? Our environmental toxins have increased. Our food quality has decreased, because I'm going to talk a lot about food. That'll be a good general info. And then I will say, what are the things that we can do to be healthier? And then I'll say, and right now Steve is going to, and Karen will have already done your bio at the beginning, share with you my suggestion, and tell me if this is okay. Your intro, just before you even got into the cancer and the firefighters, was about 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah, it was a little on the long side. Yeah.
Is it possible to go right into, because you repeated what you guys do, because you do a lot of wonderful things. But if you can keep all the things that don't apply to this topic really short.
Yeah.
And because when you get into I think it's your 3rd or 4th slide where you're talking about
This one.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's fast. That is so fascinating right there. How everything on topic, like what you are doing for them to remove the exposure to the hazards is so fantastic. And I don't want people to lose that because we've already lost their attention. I mean, Karen and I have learned this. So, and not that everything you're saying isn't important and fascinating, because all of that is really good. But I think on that slide right there.
Yeah, we need to get through this quick.
Yes, if you say we do a variety of things, and I wish I had time to tell you about all of them, but tonight we are talking about exposure to, and when you get to that next slide where you talk about everything you do, I mean, that's what we want the bulk of it to be. Yeah. And then, so your talk really, honestly, if you could Karen's intro will be like 2 minutes. And then I'll do like a 5-minute general health intro. And then if you can make yours 10 minutes, because we're going to come back to you again at the end for 5 more minutes, 10, and then I'll do another 10, maybe, or 7 or 8. I'm going to go as fast as I can. But I have a lot of stuff I have to cover too. And then if we can have you thank those 2 people at the end, if that's okay, unless you're supposed to do that and you have to do that at the beginning.
No, I don't actually have to do it at all. I can take those out completely.
Oh, you can? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Anything like that where we can just stay on our topic.
Yeah.
I think that the topic is so needed. I want this recording to go far and wide. I want every firefighter to hear what you just said. I think what you guys are doing in your city, because my question is, does everybody do this in every city?
No. So we're lucky that I happen to be a resource in the city that I founded it.
You're amazing.
But there are fire corps organizations throughout the country. Mm-hmm. There's some really good ones, like Cincinnati's got a great one, I think it is, and there's another one on the East Coast, Philadelphia somewhere, I think it is. But yeah, this is pretty rare. There's communities all around here that don't have one. Like the next city over from us is Roswell. They don't have one.
Yeah.
So, but up here in North Fulton, we have 3 big ones: Sandy Springs, Alpharetta, and us are the big ones. And Roswell, Johns Creek are 2 other cities. They don't have one.
But, and Julie, that was one of the things I had asked him, like what everything that they're doing is exceptional. It's not the standard, unfortunately. So.
Right.
Right. We just happen to have made decontamination a focal point because we have our friends in Alpharetta who did the air and the rehab stuff. So while we do air and rehab, we've become something of the decon experts. So we set up the decon stations and take care of it. We lead the decon efforts at any of the fires.
That's the part that I think that's got to be the bulk of what I want them to hear.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to talk about, because you're sharing what you guys are doing to reduce that. And then I'm going to tell them what they can do to reduce their exposure on their own. Food, fruits and vegetables, adding more or adding Juice Plus to their diet, and I have to have time to go into the research, which is so good because the Juice Plus research is so phenomenal. This creates oxidative stress, exposure to these chemicals, but firefighters aren't sleeping well. That increases it too.
Right.
They exercise a lot. I know firefighting stations, they exercise a lot. A lot of them don't know that if they exercise, but they don't have the diet to fill those blanks in, they're further damaging their body. So there's a lot of good things that we're both going to bring. I just want to make sure that we can try to do this in 30 minutes if we can, because boy, people's attention spans, especially since COVID, are getting short.
Sure.
I want to make sure we keep them here to hear the whole thing, because so I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I might, I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete this slide. I think we can just go here. I can set up what I'm going to do. Let's talk about who we are. Just a quick overview. We go to fires, we go to car accidents, things like that. And then let's get straight into this within the first 3 minutes.
So good. Yeah, I want you to change anything.
And then I'll spend the bulk of the time on this slide and this slide, because it talks about all the things we do. And then that's why I left these as pictures and not words. So we can go through them fairly quickly and then sum it up about changing the culture. And then lead right back into the food. And
then at the end, when we can, whoever wants to stay on and ask more Q&A, that's the good part, is we can invite them to stay on and they can ask either one of us questions, but that's really important that we kind of, just save that for the very end. And the reason I asked you to do that slide again is I'm going to go through and tell them what they can do to reduce their own exposure on their own with food, water, exercise, sleep, the other things. And then you can say, we have a wellness program too, that we do because of what Julie just shared. We know that this is the other part of the puzzle. We're doing reduction of exposures to these chemicals with everything we voluntarily do, but it's empowering to know you can do that on your own. I think it's going to be fantastic. And the recording is what I worry about too, because a lot of people won't come to a live event, but if we can keep our recording really tight, this will go, our community has the ability for this to go very far. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, we here in Milton, that's the reason why when I founded it and we said we're going to focus on decon, no one else has done that. So we've been really building up our capabilities, and now Michelle Ice now turns to us as the example in the state of Georgia, and probably in the Southeast, maybe even nationally. There's nobody more advanced than us in doing decon in the fire service right now.
I bet. I'm completely blown away and fascinated. And I was thinking in my head, well, the other reason also, I have an amazing firefighter on my team, and she is going to try to be on to share her story about Juice Plus. She is a CrossFit champion. She's medic of the year. She's on SWAT. And she's a firefighter paramedic, but she also teaches the firefighter academy. She's amazing. Nice. She does it all. And her story with Juice Plus is incredible. And the way that she takes care of her health with being a SWAT, she's called to SWAT all the time. Plus she's teaching at the fire academy. Then she volunteers with kids at night. I can't even, my mind is blown with how much she does, but she she has learned how to take care of her health in between, and I want them to hear from her. I just don't know if she'll get called to SWAT on that night,
Right.
but she might be another speaker on this, and I want to give her at least 5 minutes too. So,
I took you through the extended version.
yes, I'm glad you did.
Yeah, I can, once we, if you want 7 minutes, I could do it in 7 minutes, no problem.
Okay, no, well, you say what you need to say, though. I definitely want to. I just wanted to, kind of,
Yeah.
it was perfect to hear the whole thing, because I wanted to hear everything that you need to share.
Well, now, that's right. Now you can explain it to others and what have you. But yeah, I could go through this in, 7 minutes. It's really just an awareness builder, that's all. But
exactly.
The people are out there doing this.
Is there a place that they can go to learn more about what you're doing? Do you have a website?
We don't. I mean, I have a very simple website for my fire corps at our city. It falls within the City of Milton website. There's a page there with some information about us. But regarding the cancer thing, it's going to where the lavender. Maybe I can put a link here to the lavender report. It's part of the National Volunteer Fire Council, the NVFC.
Okay.
So it's a national effort, but we just happen to, with the leadership of Chief Ben Musa, have said we're going to be the best in the country at this. And I think right now we're probably up there in the top 10.
That is so wonderful. It's really fantastic what you're doing. It was a pleasure to hear about it. And
thanks for listening. Yeah, no worries.
And Karen, do you have anything else? I'm so sorry. My daughter and I have to be someplace at 1 o'clock, and it's kind of like a thing that just happened.
Don't worry.
We have to
I
go
got
to
a
the warehouse.
barbecue. I got a green egg upstairs barbecuing some ribs for 6
Oh, that's
hours,
so
and
nice.
it just rained.